Welcome to Game Changers with Lisa Faulkner on Love 860 WAEC, Atlanta's inspirational talk radio. Lisa is a writer, producer, and innovative communicator with more than 20 years of experience. Join us as we connect you with inspiring experts and entrepreneurs from all walks of life. Your comments and questions are welcome during the broadcast. Call us live on the air at 404-355-8699. That's 404-355-8699. Now, here's Lisa Faulkner.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us for Game Changers. I won't say with me because, you know what? This year is coming to a close, and I have met and we have enjoyed so many great game changers through the year that I do not stand alone. I could not produce this program alone, and I just want to thank all of the game changers that have joined us this year. I want to give a special shout out to attorney Tabitha Solomon. Don't know if she's listening this week, but she's been a strong supporter of the program this year, and we thank her for her support. We thank her for being a game changer and all that she does in law. She practices there at the Ponder Law Group. You know, lawyers have had a special theme and a special place on the program this year, primarily because of our executive producer, attorney Brian Poe. He's with us in the studio today. But we're moving right along and ending the last show of the year with a very important conversation that's taking place across our nation. We were joined earlier this year by President Meanes of the National Bar Association to talk about the civil rights issues, the civil injustices that are happening across our country, and she gave us some very important information on what was being done as far as the National Bar Association is concerned. So we're going to get a follow-up from her, and we are also joined in the studio by another very important guest. I'm going to get to his introduction just momentarily here. I want you to continue to follow me on social media. You may find me on Facebook at Lisa M. Faulkner, on LinkedIn at Lisa Faulkner, Twitter at PenStarLisa, Instagram and Pinterest, PenStarLisa there as well. I really enjoy connecting with you. I will continue to check your comments and your invites and connect, and we'll just continue to become big buds. Please celebrate your Christmas holidays that are approaching with the love and joy that they are intended for you to celebrate them with. If you want to know in advance who the upcoming guests are for the show, go to penstar.org on the Game Changers podcast page there and get signed up for the media, the newsletter that we get out from time to time. And while you're there, you can check out some of the past articles and some of the past shows. Well, let me jump right to it. I have hopefully gotten you on the edge of your seats there and told you that we're going to be discussing throughout the hour some very important civil rights issues that are happening across our country. And to join us for the hour, we have attorney Rodney Strong. I am going to just read an excerpt from an article that he's being featured in the Atlanta Tribune. Brian writes that article, The Attorney's Corner. Brian, has this already run?
This is something that we ran about a year and a half ago.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, attorney Rodney Strong, a Memphis native, has long admired people who fought for the demise of racial injustice. These trailblazers ignited in Strong a passion for the cause against segregation and for business empowerment that has become the fundamental basis of his successful and unique law practice. That unique law practice can be found right here in Atlanta. It is Griffin and Strong. He is the founder, chairman, and CEO of Griffin and Strong. Attorney Rodney Keith Strong has established a reputation as a national expert in factual predicate research and minority and women business enterprise program development. As the former director of the Office of Contract Compliance for the City of Atlanta, Attorney Strong spearheaded the public hearings and drafting of the Atlanta Equal Business Opportunity Ordinance. The program is distinguished as the National Minority and Women Business Enterprise Model no less, for goal-based equal opportunity programs around the country. You're going to hear more about why Attorney Strong has joined some more unique forces for minorities and justice. Welcome to Game Changers, Attorney Strong.
Glad to be here.
Thank you, sir, for joining us. Well, Brian, let's jump right in. What is the order of the day? I know we've got just a whole list of things to cover with President Meanes once we bring her in.
So what we'll do, Rodney's going to sit with us for the whole show. Now, he does have the mayor's mass ball this evening. He may decide to slip out right before we wrap up, but he's featured guest, but we also have Pamela Meanes actually on the phone, or getting on the phone now. So we're just going to talk to Rodney briefly at first about his career.
Well, tell us a little bit, Attorney Strong, about economic civil rights. What does that mean to be an economic civil rights lawyer, sir?
Well, one of the big issues for African Americans is finding a way to build wealth in our communities. When Dr. King was in the last phase of the civil rights movement in 1967, he often talked about civil rights as opposed to just civil rights.
Yes.
And he said something in 1967 when I was a child in Memphis that really resonated with me. And what he said was, what good does it do a man to have integrated lunch counters if he can't buy a hamburger?
Wow.
And so Atlanta, fortunately, has been at the forefront of creating opportunities to deal with some of the historic problems and injustices that African Americans in particular and other minorities have faced in terms of trying to start businesses and build wealth in this country. And fortunately, I was entrusted by former Mayor Maynard Jackson and former Mayor Andrew Young with the opportunity to work for the city in helping to advance the issue using the resources of the city of Atlanta. During that period of time, the city's program was challenged constitutionally by the Associated General Contractors who sought to end the program. And ultimately, a Supreme Court decision ruled that in order to have minority and women business programs and disadvantaged business programs, that you had to establish a basis, what legally is called a factual predicate, by doing a disparity study and analyzing whether or not there is discrimination against minorities and women. And so my firm focuses very heavily on conducting disparity studies. We also do supplier diversity on major projects. We recently worked on the World of Coca-Cola, and we're currently working on the Atlanta Falcons stadium project, ensuring that minority businesses are actively involved in the project. And I think it's important because to the extent that we've created opportunities for minorities and women in Atlanta, I think we've created a safe space for us to grow an economy that's inclusive of everyone.
What do you find in these disparity studies overall?
Well, I can tell you that I've conducted studies in 30 different jurisdictions. And I've conducted a major study for the city of Atlanta. And Atlanta is doing a lot better than most jurisdictions. Atlanta does about 35% participation of minority businesses in government contracting.
Okay.
Most governments tend to fall in a range somewhere under 20%, and a lot of governments are doing very low numbers, 5%, 10%. And it's important to have a concerted effort to ensure that minorities participate, because government contracting requires capital, it requires know-how, it requires expertise, and oftentimes minority businesses aren't able to put together all those resources because they don't have the legacy of an opportunity to participate on a level playing field.
That's interesting. They don't have the legacy, but they certainly have the capabilities, I'm sure.
Right, and that's one of the things we look at. When we do a study, we don't just look at the availability, but we also look at capacity issues. We do what's called a regression analysis, where we look at the education of the owner, where we look at how many years they've been in business, what kind of experience they had before they started their business, what sources of capital do they have, all of those kinds of things.
Sure.
And very often minority businesses have the capability, but just don't have the opportunity.
Yes, and that seems to be the case with minorities throughout history and around the country. The studies that you run, are they just Atlanta-based, or do you set national, though, I believe?
Yeah, we just completed a study.
Atlanta has about 35% minority business contracts for government. Is that correct?
That's correct. Atlanta does extremely well.
That sounds extremely well.
Yeah, we do work around the country. We just completed a study for Montgomery County, Alabama.
Okay. How is Atlanta?
Excuse me, I said Montgomery County, Alabama. I meant Montgomery County, Maryland.
Okay. I was about to get interested in Alabama.
Yeah,
That's my hometown.
Montgomery County, Maryland. We're currently conducting a study for Cuyahoga County, Ohio, which is the county that Cleveland is in.
Oh, my.
And we're also doing a study for the city and county, a joint study for the city and county of Durham, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you know, the premise of the show today is that's very interesting. I'd like to have you back sometime to talk a little bit more thoroughly about that, because I know economic power is the best power. Even the Bible says that money answereth all things. So, but Brian has kind of got you with a dual purpose here. And as you spoke of Dr. King's mentioning, of course, he wrote on civil rights all the way, but he also spoke very heavily and thoroughly on civil rights. You're kind of following a dual practice, I believe, partnering with Brian in the efforts of the NBA to give us your take on the civil rights that are happening or the injustice thereof around the country at this time.
Sure. I consider myself a civil rights lawyer, even though my practice is focused on economic issues, because they all really stem from the same situation. African Americans prior to 1865 were enslaved in this country, and our position legally was of a subhuman. And so consequently, all of the struggle that we have gone through with the civil rights movement of 1960s and 70s, and even what we're dealing with today, is somewhat dealing with that legacy of the way we are treated legally in this country.
Sure. Well, that's where we are. That's the cusp.
I want to ask him one more thing about economic.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
Where did you get this amazing grasp of statistics? Did you pick it up once you became a lawyer and decided this was going to be your field, or have you studied it anywhere? Because you clearly have an amazing grasp of statistics and economics.
Well, when the Supreme Court ruled in a case that was a seminal case in this area, which is called the City of Richmond versus J.A. Croson,
yes, I know.
They basically said that you have to compare the availability of minority businesses versus their actual utilization to determine whether there's a disparity. And that's the threshold to determine whether you can have a race-conscious minority or women business program. And so immediately we recognized in Atlanta that we needed to bring in some economists. And we brought in Dr. Andrew Bremer, who was the first African-American Federal Reserve Board governor. We brought in Dr. Ray Marshall from the University of Texas, who had been Secretary of Labor during the Carter administration. And we brought in Dr. Thomas D. Boston, who teaches at Georgia Tech. And we used those economists to provide the basis for the statistical portion of our study. And so one of the things that my firm has always done is to employ an economist and to employ certain statisticians to do the work that's necessary on the statistical side, what we call our quantitative analysis. And then, of course, you then have to link that actual quantitative data with qualitative data. You have to say, what does this mean from a practical standpoint? And you do that by interviewing minority business people about their actual experiences in the marketplace. And you have to then link that. By linking the qualitative data and the quantitative data, then that gives you the evidence you need to make a recommendation to a government in terms of what types of remedial efforts they need to take to assist minority and women businesses.
I love that. Sounds like some of my graduate studies.
Yeah, it's very wonky, unfortunately.
Wonky
do we need more firms that do what you do, or do you feel there's a sufficient number of firms in the market to satisfy the needs across the nation?
Well, the disparity study business is relatively competitive. There are about 10 firms nationwide that do this type of consulting, and we're generally always competing. Very rarely do we win a project that we haven't competed with at least 5 other firms.
Great. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to me yesterday a little bit about what's going on in 2014 with respect to civil rights in our country and sharing some of your passionate views about it. And I think this is a good time for us to segue into saying that we have a very special guest on the other side of the break who we're going to have on the air. And I'd like you to participate in the conversation that we have with her. And what we're going to do is talk first with President Pamela Meanes, Madam President, about her journey and what has occurred so far in her administration as president of the National Bar Association. And then at a certain point towards the end, we'll want to discuss specifically a focus that she has. It's not just national, but also looking at each state and local and having support and the teams that are being put together and the reach out that we've made to you in the last 24 hours. So that's going to be what we do with most of the remaining moments of the show. We have quite a few minutes left, of course. I think we'll take a break and come back.
Let's go to break, Dynasty.
This song's dedicated
to everyone
who made it.
Yeah.
Any test or trial,
Hopeless situation.
Now you have a story.
The angels can't sing.
Just can't sing in glory.
You're redeemed.
You're redeemed from the hand of the enemy.
Yeah. Here we go.
Whether it's in the courtroom, fighting in the ballroom, trying to feed your family, or kicked out underneath you.
God's able.
God is more than able. He can turn the table.
So turn and tell.
Turn and tell your neighbor now it's time for
Yeah.
the favor.
Can I get a witness?
Can I get a
Just need one more.
Need one more witness.
That God still opening doors. He's still making ways.
When it comes to legal matters, you can't afford to take chances. You need an attorney with knowledge, experience, and compassion. Brian Poe and Associates is one of the most trusted law firms in Atlanta. Mr. Poe and his well-qualified team can assist you with criminal matters, personal injury, and bankruptcy, as well as divorce, wills, and family law. And even more important, you can count on reasonable, affordable fees so that you can get back to living your life. Brian Poe and Associates, serving all of Metro Atlanta, Union City, and Augusta. Call right now to arrange a consultation. 404-287-2363. That's 404-287-2363. Mention Game Changers to receive a special discount. Call 404-287-2363 or simply go online to thesigningattorney.net. That's thesigningattorney.net. The hiring of an attorney is an important decision that should not be based solely upon advertising. Ask for free written information about the firm's qualifications and experience.
Do you need someone with solid, expert communications experience to write your copy or your next press release? Then you need Penn Star Communications. Let Penn Star communicate your greatest potential with clear copy written for your business and marketing needs. Whether it's your next event or next campaign, Penn Star Communications can write that for you. Visit pennstar.org or call 404-828-0287 today.
The members of the National Bar Association, we're going to tell you as legal scholars, the system is broken. Some of y'all say, take it back to the grand jury. I don't take some back to something that's broken. I fix that which is broken. Implement state laws that says there must be stricter mental health testing. Because when an officer sees a demon and a fictitious character in somebody, there's something wrong with that brother.
What is the message that you're trying to get out about the solution?
Well, you heard it, and she is next. Joining us is the National Bar Association President, Pamela Meanes. Welcome back to Game Changers, President Meanes.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thank you, guys.
You were pretty fired up there, as you are around the nation for the association, for civil rights. You, the National Bar Association has filed lawsuits. You've responded to Oprah Winfrey's request for the plan. You've done town hall after town hall concerning Ferguson and others. You're just on the move, tackling or responding to grand jury decisions and more. We see you on C-SPAN, and you're just making all sorts of call to actions around the country. So we're certainly graced by you choosing to come and spread the information to the Game Changers listening audience once again. Amidst all of that, I've mentioned President Meanes. Where do we start?
Well, let me tell you, first of all, I'm honored to be here. The honor is all mine. When you are representing attorneys like Brian Poe and Attorney Strong, you have to up your game, the ante, to
That's
make sure
right.
that they're proud that you're their president. The National Bar Association is a group effort, and I must say this year that in the city of Atlanta, Attorney Brian Poe has carried our message so strong across the nation that every time I see him do a tweet, do a post, do anything on social media, he inspires me. And I'm not saying this just because I'm on his show, but I am saying it because he really is a promoter of advancing and making access to information being disseminated properly. And I think you guys were one of the first shows to really have us on and get our message out there about what we were doing this year. So my honor, it's all my honor that you are back again on the show. So thank you again.
Oh,
President Meanes, thank you so much. Those comments really touched my heart when you get out there and are inspired by someone like you've inspired me. Certainly, it creates a drive and an extra will. Even when I don't know that I have the time, I find it to try to assist and to see if we can't make a difference, because there's so many huge things that are on the table right now, and you're trying to tackle them all, and you seem to be tackling them all. Can you tell us where you were? Did you hear the speech that we just played before we came back on the break?
I have not. I haven't listened to it.
Oh, you couldn't hear it. Okay, we let the audience hear you speaking, and you were very fired up.
Not meant to speak at the march. I was scheduled to speak at the first part of the march, which I did, and then I was ushered up by past President Parks and President-elect Crump, and they said that they want you to give remarks, and so I did that. I haven't heard it.
Wow. I also want to introduce to you Rodney Strong, and we'll get into the details of the state and local a little bit later. But what I want to do now is just allow you to hear his voice and to say hello. He may have remarks as well.
Madam President, good to see you. Good to talk to you.
Good to speak with you. I heard your voice, actually. I was online for your interview. You're doing excellent work. And without you, minority-owned law firms, women-owned firms, would not have the opportunity to do what they do. And partners like me in major firms would not have the opportunity to have access to business. What you're doing isn't just touching the lives of people in Atlanta. It is bringing inspiration across the country. So I say thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Well, we heard you from a march. Are there others planned?
Oh, absolutely. Can I tell you this, that when I started this bar year, I started off with 3 major initiatives: education as the new civil rights, voter protection, judicial diversity. And when I arrived at the convention, the Eric Gardner situation happened, and we added to that list police brutality. We've accomplished a lot over this year, but we have a lot of work left to do because the issues are just so great. I'm sorry for my raspy voice to your audience, but
it's okay.
I have a 13-year-old son, and for me, it's really, really personal. I want to eliminate the possibility of him ever going outside. And because of his confidence that my husband has so rightly instilled in him, someone mistaking that for an active image of anger or seeing a demon within him, and then mistakenly shooting him because they thought he was a thug. So the work is, we have so many things that we're trying to do, and I'm going to let Brian guide me because he knows I can go on and on.
It's okay. You are so fine.
No,
Right.
we're enjoying hearing everything here, and we're real interested. You know, I went onto your website, and I just couldn't believe all the things that have taken place since we last spoke, which was just a couple of months ago.
Exactly.
And so I think hearing it from you will inspire people even more. So we'd love for you to just tell us, how things have gone and specifically what your focus is right
We
now.
started off this year, Brian, as I told you guys when I got on the show, that education really is the fundamental thing that guides our community. And if we don't fix the educational system, we're not going to fix the issue of mass incarceration or police brutality. Educators have confessed to me, whether they will do it public or not, that mass incarceration and police brutality is a self-fulfilling prophecy of the school-to-prison pipeline. And we started this year looking at that, and across this country, we held Wiley Branton programs where we brought together experts in New York, in California, in New Orleans, and in Arkansas, and talked about what it is that the National Bar Association attorneys needed to do to have an impact to dismantle the school-to-prison pipeline, to eliminate that report that the president issued last year that said African Americans were disciplined at the highest rate. We launched a pro bono program whereby African American lawyers are volunteering on a pro bono basis to represent African American students who are in suspension hearings so that they won't be placed into alternative schools. We have selected the state of California to go after and to dismantle the zero no tolerance policy. And in those locations, we went to St. John's University. We had over 250 individuals come to talk about education and real solutions to those problems. Over 200 come in L.A. We had 350 come in New Orleans because, as you know, they have this new unique system called charter, but nobody believes that. And in Arkansas, while Wiley Branton actually gave us access to the school system there, we ended there with the University of Arkansas agreeing to do a free edition of its law review journal, which will be launched and released at our mid-year conference, which will be held in St. Louis, Missouri. In addition to that, we had a 25-state police brutality initiative that we launched. We made a pledge to go into each one of those states and to do a Know Your Rights forum. I'm happy to report that from September up until now, we've actually gone in 10 of those states. We're coming to Georgia next year with
Yes.
Brian helping to host us there.
Oh, wow.
And we'll be doing the other 15. In addition, we have tried to stay in the forefront of this issue because I said this earlier, and I really do apologize to our community that we hadn't done more, because I do believe on a certain level, had we done our job, perhaps we wouldn't be where we are. But we are awake now, and we are taking up the mantle of Charles Hamilton Houston, and we are social engineers, and we are not parasites. And I've tried to make certain, and I have a team with Brian and with my police brutality initiative team and with the criminal law section. We have tried to make sure that we have answered the call whenever we've seen it, and do it in a way that was respectful and also in a way that was legitimate. Oprah Winfrey recently, in the premiere of her show, said, I don't see a plan, and I don't see a vision and a purpose to the marches. And I really do think there's a Bible passage that really describes the marches that are happening throughout the country. There's a passage that says you cannot put new wine into old sheepskin. Mm-hmm. And the passage means that there are new things. When you have something new, you have to find something new to cover it. And I think that this is the new age of protest, but it's up to those who are seasoned to take that protest and turn action into it. And so I'm glad the voices are being heard, because if they were not being heard, then the legislation that the National Bar Association is trying to push on a federal, state, and a local level, we wouldn't have the opportunity to do it.
Wow. Well, talk to us about some of those specifics. I know that you are not just walking and talking. There are specific things that you would like to see done. Since Garner's death, the National Bar Association has pushed for the passage of local, state, and federal legislation on several matters, like the body and dash cameras. Talk to us about some of the specifics.
Absolutely. Well, if you look on the state level, there are two issues that everybody can agree that are glaring. That is the need for independent investigation. Police officers are not capable of policing themselves. There is a shield. It's almost like asking me to indict my husband. I'm going to find every reason why he's innocent as opposed to why he's guilty.
Yes.
Some of that is not an indictment of them. It's just an acknowledgement that it is difficult sometimes to be honest where the problems are. So we are calling for and have drafted legislation to say state legislators take up this mantle when session opens back up to appoint independent, whenever there is a police-involved shooting, to appoint independent investigators to come in. Number two, that there be an independent prosecutor. You know, when we first started this journey, we knew that the independent investigation was an issue, but the Michael Brown case and the Eric Garner case opened up an insight into the grand jury system that I was never aware of. I knew it was a secret process, but some of the issues that are dealt with in that process revealed to us that the prosecutors sometimes are as attached as the police officers, and sometimes they are not. But to eliminate that, there should be a bill that has an independent prosecutor that does these cases when there's a police-involved shooting. And there should be provisions in that bill that would allow the public to actually look and to evaluate whether or not that is working. There's a necessity for change, and that's the bill that has been drafted and that can be found on our website. Now, some people have said to us, well, Attorney Meanes, we think that having these independent review boards would solve the problem of the independent investigator. I'm going to tell you in my travels around the country, people have been saying the independent, these boards, public civilian boards, don't work because they have no subpoena power. They have no power really to really act, and then so you have to fix all of that. Let's do away with that and let's make something simple and clean. So on the state level, we've been saying to state legislators, this is an issue that won't go away. If you think the cold is going to make people stop marching, it won't, because people have gotten to a point where they're saying, I won't ask you for respect. I'm not going to demand it. And we know as civil rights attorneys at heart that the thing that changes a nation and changes a situation is when you have the laws on the books that you can utilize, even if we have to fight that the application of the law is equal with us. With the death cam law, if you look at what we've drafted, we applaud the president for issuing the order, but we think there should be some meat added to the laws that are being offered on a federal level. And that meat has to do with put some penalty to police officers tampering, hiding, withholding desk cameras or body cams. And you'll see that the law calls for that. We actually had 3 former police officers reviewing our law, and they pointed out to us where the gaps were, and we inserted those things that they told us. This will help you spot stuff that you don't even know that's going on within a police department. People are looking for immediate change, so we've drafted a law on the local level that says to police department, says to city councils, pass a law that requires stricter mental health testing. Yes. Number 2, de-escalation of force, dealing with racial profiling, and also a law that would require diversity training on a monthly basis. And if you do the diversity training but don't do the de-escalation of force training, you're going to miss the issue. I've had police officers tell me, Madam President, we are trained to police and not trained to protect civil rights. Wow. And that's the reason why you see a disparity in our communities, because the crime rate may be higher in our communities, but if you look at the crimes that are caused or that are done by whites, that they don't shoot, but they actually apprehend. You know that there's a de-escalation problem. There was a guy in South Carolina who went into Walmart, tried to steal a register 3 times, terrorized all of the citizens in there, led the police on a chase. The police got into a struggle with him. He grabbed for the police officer's gun 3 times.
Oh, my goodness.
They tasered him, and arrested him.
Oh,
Why?
my goodness.
Because they didn't look at him as a threat.
That is
they
it.
de-escalated the situation.
Right.
And we're saying in our communities, every person in our community is not a criminal.
That's right.
Every person in our community is not a thug. Every person in our community is not a drug dealer.
Mm-hmm.
And you cannot paint a single brush over one community and think it's appropriate because the rates are higher in a community. And in that instance, we say the de-escalation of force, and local governments can do that immediately.
Yes. Well, what is the response that you're getting?
Well,
Are they
Ryan will tell you that since the March on Washington, we've gotten so much help from this group called The Roots. And they're helping us organize and meet legislators. We formed these teams in these 25 states, and we've done it in a matter of a week. Is that right, Brian?
Yes. We had.
And what we're doing now is lobbying, and Brian can tell you something about it.
Explain that. What is that about, Brian?
Well, no, I was. Well, first of all, I want to give a shout out to a couple of attorneys that have really. Well, and I'm going to let Madam President close the gap here because I've specifically worked with Celestine Fortin of Fort Myers, Florida, and of course Verona Swanigan, who was on the show previously, and they've really pushed very hard in getting all of the information that we needed to disseminate to the attorneys in the Atlanta area. Specifically, Mr. Strong was the one that we, in terms of our effort, we wanted to have a team assembled and some attorneys assembled and some momentum before we made the presentation to Mr. Strong. And so that, and in fact, him being on the show tonight is a manifestation of our efforts during the course of this entire week. So it's been amazing, and I'm imagining that if this is going on in the other 24, you have an incredible groundswell of support. Madam President.
Well, Attorney Strong, what prompted you? What was it? Brian's great presentation. What are you looking forward to? Why did you accept?
Well, I'm motivated by this issue. I've dealt with it, my whole life as an African American male. I grew up in North Memphis. We knew that police brutality was rampant in the community I grew up in the 1960s and 70s. We had an incident that occurred when I was a senior in high school where a young African-American child, 15 or 16 years old, named Elton Hayes, was chased by the police, pulled out of a vehicle, and beaten to death.
Oh, my.
And we had weeks of protest around that, very similar to what you're seeing in Ferguson. My family was touched personally in the early 1980s while I was in my first year in law school at the University of Memphis. And my cousin, who was a senior in college at the University of California, Long Beach, was pulled out of his car and hung. Basically, he was put in a chokehold and killed, and then he was hung by sheets in a cell in Signal Hill, California. Fortunately, the late, great Johnny Cochran represented our family and was able to vindicate his memory.
Wow.
But there was never an indictment in that case.
So the vindication was a civil verdict.
It was a civil verdict. It was a case that was covered very extensively. It was actually the case that got Johnny his national recognition. He had handled those types of cases in Los Angeles, but that case got national attention because my cousin was a football star, and it was covered on 2020, and it was covered every week in Jet magazine, and it was very devastating to our family. And I was telling Brian yesterday, one of the things that I was very happy about was that before Johnny passed away, he dedicated the conference room at the Cochran firm in Memphis in honor of my cousin.
Oh, wow.
And I was able to go to that event and speak and to thank him for taking a tough case.
Oh, my.
Because, there was no money there. It was a contingency case.
So this is a heart matter for you.
Oh, very much so.
definitely.
Very much so.
Brian, did you know all of this?
No. I'm going to be honest. It just came to mind because we were really, really brainstorming, being pushed very hard by the National to put together the best team. Okay.
He's calling me pushy, Lisa.
No,
I hear him, President
I'm
Meanes.
calling you and your team, including a couple of people I've mentioned.
I think he likes to be pushed around by you, though.
That's true. That's true. And so I was speaking with Jamie Cox, who's part of my team, who actually was involved in writing the feature on you, Madam President, and was very much involved in writing the feature on Rodney that we did a year and a half ago.
Thank you
Yes.
guys so
And we were just brainstorming. She said, "Now, have you talked to Rodney?"
Wow.
And it was just like
You see
right
how
away. I
all
was like,
things work
where
together.
was my mind? Like,
Wow.
that's the first person I should have talked to. But I thought about it and I was like, this is God, because now I actually can have somewhat of a real conversation with him about my role and what I'm doing, because I've been involved, as opposed to just starting straight from scratch. Because with his passion, his knowledge, and coming with this economic civil rights, which is something that just to have on the resume of what we're doing right now, I was like, if he wants to be involved in any way, and he embraced it. And I will quote him. He said, "I'm 559% with you."
And Brian will tell you I sent Brian an OMG.
Yes. She said a OMG, and then she sent a "This is outstanding" follow-up. I did not get a chance to forward that to Rodney.
Well, this is an OMG issue. We're going to get ready to take another break. We have about 20 more minutes. President Meanes, please stay with us. We have Attorney Strong in the studio for the hour as well, and we're going to keep talking about your civil rights game changers. Please keep listening on the other side of the break.
If he did it before, he could do it again. If he did it before, he could do it again. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and I won't give in. No, I'm not gonna turn around. Yeah, I know I win if I don't give up now. I am waiting for my change to come, and I know he will come through. And this is how I'm so sure. If he did it before, he'd do it again. Same God right now. Same God back then. If he did it before.
Let's face it, negotiation in today's business world can be a real challenge unless you know the right people. And if you want to protect yourself, the first name you need to know is Poe Simpson Law. Poe Simpson provides comprehensive legal support for small businesses, entertainment, athletes, and emerging entrepreneurs. Principals Brian Poe and Michelle Simpson are well seasoned in contract negotiations and establishing sound business relationships. Whether your concern is corporate, real estate, or launching your creative career, Poe Simpson Law can serve you from start to finish, from forming your entity to contracting professional services. Take the first step in securing your future right now. Contact Poe Simpson Law to arrange a consultation. Call 404-994-6220. That's 404-994-6220. Mention Game to receive a special discount. Call 404-994-6220. That's 404-994-6220. Or visit PoeSimpsonLaw.com. That's PoeSimpson law.com. The hiring of an attorney is an important decision that should not be based solely upon advertising. Ask for free written information about the firm's qualifications and experience.
Tune your radio.
Tune in.
Now.
You can tune into this radio station on any smartphone or tablet.
iPhone,
Android,
BlackBerry,
Nokia,
Samsung,
Windows phones,
or whatever you have. Download the free TuneIn app from your phone or tablet's app store.
Tune in with music, sports, news, and comedy.
From over 70,000 radio stations around the world, including this Beasley Broadcast Group station. Check it out at tunein.com.
Or your app store.
all need a little more Jesus and a little bit more President Meanes. How much longer is your term, President Meanes?
You know, my term ends on July the 24th. I actually get out early. I get out of, I'm just kidding, not get out, but I do exit my term earlier this year. It always starts at the conclusion of our annual convention, and it ends at the that last day. And my term ends July the 24th at the annual dinner. I didn't mention one thing that we have done, and Attorney Strong actually made me think of it in the sense that it's been a long journey in the sense that his cousin couldn't get justice, which is not surprising, given that the standard by which a jury or a grand jury has to apply when they're looking at police officers is so arbitrary and capricious that it's likely that they will come back with a no true bill. And one thing that we've done is said until the federal government fixes the system, which we don't know if that's going to happen over the next 2 years, we are going around the country asking for the revocation of those police officers who are involved in brutality. And it doesn't shock the conscience of the legal system, but it shocks our conscience. And we filed our first petition in Missouri asking the Department of Public Safety to permanently revoke Darren Wilson's license. And we're in the process of looking at the other 24 states doing the same thing and hopefully being able to file those petitions beginning in January.
Wow. Attorney Strong?
President Meanes, when I had a chance to talk to Brian yesterday and look at the materials, I saw that the NBA is looking at national legislation. Can you talk a little bit about what that national legislation, what the scope of that is, and to the extent that you've already had conversations with members of the Congressional Black Caucus, if you could just describe what those
absolutely. And thank you, Attorney Strong, for agreeing to assist us with that national legislation and wanting to have involvement. We welcome, especially given your connection to this. We really are pushing for 4 pieces of legislation. One is the mandatory body camera with the penalty for tampering. The second is a succinct definition and training to escalation of force and excessive force. Because what we find in the 1982 case is that a police officer may elevate force to that degree which he or she believes is reasonable if they believe their life is in danger to stop that danger. We want police officers to shoot to stop if they have to, shoot to stop and not shoot to kill. And the last one is make it a felony for a police officer to stand by and watch another officer commit acts of brutality and do nothing to stop it. We believe that these are 4 key pieces of legislation that if passed on the federal level, cannot be really passed on the state level because you can't do something that conflicts with that 1982 case. We have been in conversations with members of the Congressional Black Caucus. We were happy to see Congressman Cleaver, who has agreed to be my legislative partner this year, put out a bill on cameras. We employ him, and we wish that he would also put some penalties connected to that. But I do think that there's a reception. There is Congress is going to hold some hearings, preliminary hearings next year when session gets back in, and they are really, as you saw the session that they did toward the end of the session, where they all got on the floor and spoke about this issue and how it is the new civil rights. So we are pushing with them also, and we have gotten our legislation to most of them, and we're going to, Brian will tell you that we have a 2-week strategy, 60-day and a 90-day strategy.
Wow.
And the federal is a part of the 90, that when they get back in session, we want to have more meetings. We have an excellent young lady who is my legislative standing committee chair, the lobbyist. Her name is Kim Jones. She does this for a living in D.C., and she does it on the education side, but she's been brilliant.
We are so proud of you, and I'm so proud of Brian for being so engaged on these very important matters. We have a caller that wants to weigh in. They disconnected. Well, we had a caller that wanted to. They didn't wait for you, but anyway, Brian.
Oh well, one question. Follow up on the question of your term ending. During World War II, we had President Franklin Roosevelt served two terms. You know this history, right? He was the first president who because he had done such an outstanding job, and it was such a critical time that custom changed, and he ran for a third term. I guess that's not possible here, although
That is
I would
not-
think with the momentum that we're seeing right now, it's going to be a tough act to follow. So can you tell us about, actually I know who your successor is, and that's one thing that makes me feel a little bit better about it. But could you tell us, one, who your successor is, and then two, are you all working hand in hand? Because this seems like a task that just can't end in a year.
I know.
And
I was thinking the same
how are you going to make
thing.
sure the footprint that you've established
any
continues
good
forward?
leader knows that a movement is not about a person. It is about the actual cause. And so the first thing I've done with each one of my initiatives is to make certain that they were taken from our legislative agenda, number one. Number two, make sure they had a home in one of our 10 divisions or 22 sections. This one is actually housed in the criminal law section, so it will not die. And the co-chair of my police brutality initiative is Mr. Terry Wiley, who is a 23-year prosecutorial a prosecutor out of California. He's a bad brother.
Wow.
And he's been chair for the last 3 years, has committed himself to being chair again. I'm a corporate lawyer who's going to join his section next year to ensure that, that it works. The person that's going to follow me, although people have made the suggestion that Brian has made, I'm happy to say that the person that will follow me will take this up. The person that follows me is Benjamin Crump, who has been fighting this issue before the bar even woke up to start to fight the issue.
Yes.
So I'm confident that he will. And if you guys notice, there was something that really was different this year than when he was fighting the issue of Trayvon Martin. You've heard President-elect Crump talk about the National Bar Association and what the National Bar Association has been doing. That tells you that, yes, we're partnering together, and we demand that justice is not about the individual, it's not about the person. We will be accused by some of, are we following Benjamin Crump? The police is not following Benjamin Crump. We're following those individuals who've gotten acts of injustice. And we have, before anything happened in St. Louis, Missouri, people thought we started the initiative because Madam President is located in Missouri. That wasn't it either. It was really the insight of a brother by the name of Darrell Washington, who's the co-chair of this initiative, who said if black lawyers are not finding the solution, then what good is our degree? I 100% agree with him. We can't let it die. And Brian has joined the NBA, and not only has he joined, this brother has gotten so active that I think Brian will demand, don't you come to the convention asking them, to do no thing that's different. But I think Brian will demand that it continue.
I love that. Can you speak a little bit about the mental health testing or mental health let's see, I lost it. I kind of had it here, but
absolutely.
Yes, I'm a little interested in learning more about that.
The individuals that practice in this field, especially on the side of representing families, talk about the experts that they come in contact with, that talk about systemic racism and that talk about implied racism. And sometimes people don't even realize the animus that they have toward other individuals and some of the stress and pressures that individuals are under when they put their lives on the line. If you listen to Darren Wilson's words in his interview, which I think are so critical for the federal case, it gives you an insight that any person that is actually seeing animated creatures kind of makes you wonder whether or not there is something that is going on that we don't know about. Here's a gentleman who grew up in a very broken home, who had not a lot of direction and who had to fend for himself, rear himself, and to actually prove himself to some individuals. But yet when he describes a community that had the same struggle as he did, they are a group of thugs, they are a group of drug dealers, nobody likes them, they don't like the cops. That tells you that there is something deeper that is going on and that that the system has actually felt him also. And the requirement of that is that we have healthy cops that are on the street, that we're employing healthy cops to serve our community and not cops that have some problems that we never deal with.
We have the caller back on the line. I'm not certain if it's the same one, but I really appreciate that response, Attorney President Meanes. But let's hear from the caller, please, before we close the hour. Caller, are you there?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, hi. Yes, I am here. How are you today, Lisa?
Doing well. Who am I speaking with? Who knows me so well?
This is Jamie Cox, Lisa.
Hello, Jamie Cox. Well, thank you for calling.
Thanks for calling, Jamie.
Hi, Brian.
Do you have a question for President Meanes or a comment? Oh, I'm sorry. I think I cut your comment off. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just congratulating you on putting on a great show. I've been listening. So this show is definitely much needed and very timely. And
thank you.
also to acknowledge your panel, Lisa. You have a great panel today.
Thank you. Well, we owe it all to our executive producer, Brian Poe. He put this group together. And, of course, you know, we're just honored and beyond belief to have Madam President back of the National Bar Association.
And Jamie, you ought to see Rodney tonight. He is like looking like $1,000.
He is. Yeah. He's in a tuxedo.
Oh,
he told me he wore it for the show.
No.
I'm not convinced, though.
Well, this is an important show. I had to dress up.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your call, Jamie.
Thank you. I just wanted to, again, thank you for the show, Lisa, and all of the panelists. Again, Attorney Brian Poe, and Attorney Rodney Strong, and Madam President Pamela Meanes. But this show was very, very effective. And so I appreciate you guys coming on and treating everyone else to be passionate about this cause against police brutality and also against dehumanizing the individual. So I appreciate you guys bringing attention to it, but again, also for providing a means for us to be effective in fighting this.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Well, President Meanes, tell the public and Jamie how exactly we can continue to be effective and walk alongside you in your efforts.
You can be effective by helping us find a state legislator in Georgia that will push this state legislation, which is on our website. But Lisa, can I say this also?
Yes.
What's most effective too is us getting out the names of other police brutality victims that the world doesn't know about.
Yes.
So you'll see us in the next months or so highlighting individuals who have been victims, but nobody knows their name.
That's right.
Next week, we're going to dedicate to Georgia. And it's a coincidence, as I was on your show, we were starting with Georgia anyway. And we're highlighting the cases of this young lady by the name of Natalia Griffin and Mr. Montre Merritt. And we want America to know that it has an epidemic. But if you go to www.nationalbar.org, we have everything on the website, plain for you to view, for you to see. We have a brochure that's laid out under our national events. We have the law that you can download. The National Bar Association doesn't need the credit for anything. All we want to do is to motivate some people to take it, lobby it, and pass the law.
Wow.
We're not trying to be on first. We're just trying to succeed. That's it.
Thank you so much, Madam President, for spending the hour with us. This is a worthy
Thank
subject.
you for having me. God bless you, Lisa. You are an awesome host. Admire you. I look forward to meeting you when I come to Georgia. But, Brian, I must say that you really have done something to encourage me and to make me excited about being president this year. You don't know what it means when you post on the website that you're happy to follow and rejoin the National Bar Association. It does something to my spirit. And I want to say to you, keep doing what you're doing in Atlanta and keep doing what you're doing for black judges and black attorneys. It matters across the country. I thank you. Strong, I can't say anything, but I I wish I could see you all dressed up and that you did it for me, but I know you did it for the mayor.
Thank you, President Meanes.
Thank you, President Meanes.
We have about 30 seconds left, guys. I want to just read a brief definition on the National Bar Association. It was founded in 1925. It's the nation's oldest and largest national network of predominantly African-American attorneys and judges. It represents the interests of approximately 60,000 lawyers, judges, law professors, and law students. The NBA is organized around 23 substantive law sections, 9 divisions, 12 regions, and 80 affiliate chapters throughout the United States and around the world. Since the death of Michael Brown, there have been 14 teens killed, those names not mentioned and known. As President Meanes said, when we leave this hour, I just want to read them to you. And Dynasty, you can bring me down whenever you need to. Tamir Rice, Cameron Tillman, Von Derrick Myers Jr., Laquan McDonald, Carrie Smith Viramonts, Jeffrey Holden, Queason Witten, Miguel Benton, Dylan McGee, Levi Weaver, Karen Sifonce, Sergio Ramos, Rashad McIntosh, and Diana Showman. Thank you for listening.